Good evening. We'll open up this meeting. All the selectmen are present. We'll start by transmitting a Treasury warrants 15, 15A, 16, and 16A.
Move the warrants as read by the chairman.
Second.
Motion made second. All in favor? Unanimous. We have selectmen meeting minutes to approve, September 26, 2011, and October 11, 2011. We will take them up together unless there's any issues with them.
I have no issues. I would move that we approve the minutes of September 26th as well as October 11th.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion made second. All in favor? It's unanimous. We'll start with a 7 o'clock appointment with Scott C. Garant, Chairman of the 4th of July Committee. He's here to request the use of the town common for the tree lighting ceremony on December 3rd, 2011. Good evening.
Good evening, thank you. As you said, Mr. Chairman, Saturday, December 3rd, 4 to 6 p.m. As in the past, we plan to present an event that will include Wilmington clergy, Christmas carols, the ice sculpture, horse-drawn hay rides, cookies and hot chocolate, and an appearance by Santa Claus himself. Also participating will be volunteers from the Wilmington Minuteman and always appreciated help from the Wilmington High School cheerleaders. We anticipate having the Wilmington Fire Department present collecting toys for Wilmington children, and the Wilmington Community Fund will be there with sales of Wilmington Christmas tree ornaments. Upon Santa's arrival at 6 o'clock, we'll ask him to light the trees as we always do, and then the kids will be invited into the 4th of July building for pictures with Santa. As is the case with our summertime events, the tree lighting would not be possible without the help of the town manager and his staff, the police department, the fire department, the public buildings department, and the Department of Public Works. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
I just can't believe we're talking about this already. It feels like we were just letting go of summer and we're talking about the holiday lights. Have you seen the long-range forecast for that day yet?
I have. It's going to be fine.
Beautiful. All right. In that case, then I'm in full support.
Any other comments, questions, or comments from the board, or a motion? Need a motion.
Move to grant the request.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you very much.
Thank you all, and while I have the floor for a moment, I'd just like to remind the board and the community that there's 1 week left in the Liberty Mutual Fire Safety Contest, and Wilmington currently stands in second place. As the board knows, as most people know, Liberty Mutual is run, this is the 4th contest they've run, 2 for the 4th of July, which we did receive the $10,000 grant, and last year the fire department received the $10,000 grant. Second place isn't Wilmington. So if folks would go online to libertymutual.com and take the quiz and enter Wilmington at the end, I know we can, as a community, push it over the top and get the grant for the fire department once again.
Thank you, Mr. Grant, for reminding us about the grants.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, our 7:10 appointment was Jeffrey M. Hull, Assistant Town Manager, for townwide credits and savings through insurance program. Good evening.
Good evening. I've been asked to speak with you this evening about some correspondence that you received from the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association, which is MIA. They're the largest insurance carrier of municipal insurance in the Commonwealth, and we are members of the association. As you know from the correspondence, this past fiscal year, the town was able to generate $84,677 in credits off of our insurance, which amounts to about 16% off of our premium. Our gross premium was $528,000, so this reduces that premium by that margin. And the credits are come from for a number of reasons. The largest portion of the credits, which was just under $40,000, is due to the MIA Rewards Program. Each year, MIA sets up this program to encourage municipalities and school districts to take steps to try to avoid claims, whether it be auto accidents, property claims, general liability claims, workers' comp. And they offer a series of training sessions, both off-site, on-site. They offer webinars and different resources for communities to take advantage of to try to avoid claims. Over the fiscal year 2011, department heads and members of the various departments participated in a number of training programs, including work zone safety training, training on proper use of chainsaws, confined space training in the case of the water department. So there were a number of trainings that we're involved in. The police and fire have on a regular basis taken advantage of the driver simulator program, where Maya brings out literally a trailer that's set up to simulate driving conditions for emergency vehicles, and they've sent a number of people through that training. In addition, the public buildings department does regular inspections of town buildings. That also contributes towards these credits. So altogether, that was a great effort on the part of the various departments, including the school department, who was also very involved in loss control. The next most significant credit was generated by early payment on the invoice. Essentially, Meijer offers a early payment discount, so if we pay within 30 days, they reduce the bill by about $24,000. And then in addition to that, they offer credits for ongoing participation in the program. We've been involved with the Maya program since July of 2006. I put the insurance program out to bid at that point, and we shifted most of our insurances, with the exception of workers' comp and police and fire, over to the Maya program. And then in 2010, I went through another bid process, and we remained with Maya for all of our insurance except that we added the workers' comp. So it's certainly been advantageous periodically to go through a bid process and make sure that the insurance carriers are offering the best price. So that's pretty much it. We're as I say, we're on an ongoing basis trying to do things to avoid claims, and it's good to see that we're getting credit for that.
Thank you. Could you just explain quickly what MIIA is, the Maya program is? Just a quick overview.
Sure. Maya was put together back in the early 80s, I think in some respects in response to Proposition 2.5, to give municipalities another alternative to get competitive pricing on on property, casualty, general liability, and auto insurance, and also professional liability. So it's essentially an association of cities and towns across the Commonwealth that participate in this program, and through that large volume, Meijer is able to get competitive pricing on the various insurance products. So they're, in some respects, an insurance company. They are, have staff that respond to claims. It's set up in similar to that, except that they deal directly with cities and towns. They don't go through insurance agents as many carriers do.
Thank you. 16% is a good chunk of change, good savings. Any questions or comments from the board?
No, I just say I'm glad to see that. Just on top of that, I know as a municipality we need to go out for bid, but it goes to show you, because of the economics, what's going on in the country, that all kinds of insurance companies, even in the public sector, private sector, bread companies, everyone's submitting bids, today. So, the town can benefit on many aspects, and people who own private business can benefit as well. So that's what's happened with today's climate. So, thank you.
Excellent. Mike?
I'm good.
It's Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association, is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay, it didn't say it here, and I was wondering what that first I was. I knew that one of them had to be insurance. That's cool. And maybe this is, I'm not sure which of you would have the answer for me. First of all, let me say thank you for, as Mr. McCoy said, thank you for keeping your eye on the ball. I mean, that's an appreciable savings, and certainly the town appreciates your hard work and the hard work of the people that allow us to get these credits. When assembling the budget, this is for property casualty, auto, it's not for health insurance? Is that what you said?
That's right, it's not health insurance.
Okay. When assigning budgets for the current fiscal budget year, do we look at, I can't remember from the budget process, do we look at and anticipate what kind of credits we're going to get back based on our history? Or is this sort of perceived as sort of bonus money? You understand what I mean? Like now we're getting $84,677 in credit dollars. Did we foresee something in that vicinity when we put together the budget for this year?
No, not, it's very difficult to figure out, for example, what we would get in terms of participation credits. The board of directors from Maya each year, depending upon, what they have in terms of reserves over the money that beyond the money that they need to operate the organization, they make a determination. That's one of the virtues of being in this kind of a setup, is that municipalities pay into the program, and if it turns out collectively that the losses are less than anticipated, or there's a surplus, so to speak, in excess of the reserves that they need to hold, instead of that money going to investors, it comes back to the cities and towns. So it's difficult to anticipate that from year to year. I mean, we do anticipate some amount of money coming back in terms of the Maya Rewards program, because we're heavily involved in that. But essentially, when I put together the budget recommendation for insurance, it's really based upon our loss experience and factors that are associated with the insurance itself, as opposed to expected credits.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair answer, and it's not a small amount of monies, and one, I guess I would hope that it would help buffer any unforeseen expenses that the town would incur, whether it be health-related or otherwise, as we go forward. So, again, thanks for all your efforts, and for the information as well.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I noticed that the public comment section is toward the end of the meeting, and I noticed that some people that are on the agenda are leaving the meeting, who we would like to ask questions to, and I would like Mr. Hall to be able to remain to the end of the meeting, so we could ask him some questions in public comments.
Okay, if he's got nowhere to go, he's welcome to stay like everybody else.
I'd be happy to ask him
Thank you for all
questions
your
right now.
information tonight, Mr. Hall. Thank you. Okay, 7:20, Board of Selectmen discussion, review of proposed special town meeting warrant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have a copy of the warrant that has been prepared that we will ask you to consider at the end of the meeting for signature. This is the warrant for the special town meeting to be held on Saturday, December 10th, 2011, in conjunction with the action that may or may not be taken at the December 6th meeting relative to the debt exclusion vote on the high school project. The meeting itself will be at Wilmington High School, the Lawrence H. Cushing Gymnasium, beginning at 10:30 a.m. The first article is the article that will ask for an appropriation, and it'll ask for an appropriation by borrowing for monies to be expended for the purpose of paying the cost of a new high school and all the associated costs therein. The school would be located at its current location of 159 Church Street. And within the body of the article, we would ask that the town incur those expenses less any eligible cost that would be provided to us from the Massachusetts School Building Authority. They've determined that of the eligible approved cost, we would be reimbursed at a level of 52.47%. I know that the board has been attending the various meetings, the public information meetings, and so you've seen the presentation. I'm not sure to what extent you want to talk about the presentation. I think that's pretty much been made available to all. In terms of the impact on the taxpayer at this point, we are looking at various financing options, but for the most part, we are focusing on a 25-year financing option at issuing 25 years in debt at a projected interest rate based upon our advisors from State Street Bank of 3.2%. We estimate that the total project cost will be approximately $83.7 million. We're expecting to have the town pay in the area of $43 million. None of that is certain yet, and that's why we've been dealing with ranges. The estimated local share still falls in between a range of $41 and $46 million. And the reason for this is because we need to await the approval of the MSBA. We have forwarded on October 7th the final proposals to the MSBA, and they are dealing now with the high school committee along with the OPM, the owner's project manager, and the architectural and design firm. We will be meeting with them at a time that has not yet been scheduled. We're waiting for the MSBA to schedule that meeting to discuss various aspects of the project, all leading up to a November 16th formal meeting with the MSBA Board of Directors, with the authority itself, who will take a final vote and indicate to us what their determination is relative to the high school in terms of the eligible cost. Looking at an approximate cost of $43 million over a period of 25 years, again, we're in that same ballpark of the annual residential tax impact based on an average residential property value at being about $159 a year, just under $160 a year over the 25-year period. Again, that's based upon the average homeowner. Obviously, some of that will change in the event that a person is in a residence, a property owner, at something less than the average, which is $357,000, and we can provide information as to the cost there. If, for example, based upon this scheme, if the person's average, or if a person's property is valued at $300,000, then the average impact over that 25 years would be $134. If, on the other hand, a person's value is at $400,000, then over a 25-year scheme, it would be approximately $179. So we're looking at the impact of the average taxpayer at this point, and that's the $159 number. So I hope to be able to report to the board. I will be able to report to the board the exact numbers. It'll be ready for the Finance Committee hearing, which is November 21st. It'll need to be included in the motion that will go to town meeting. But we're still looking at the numbers that I've suggested at this point, based upon a 25-year borrowing.
Very good.
Article number 2, Mr. Chairman, is somewhat of a companion article in terms of this project, in that we're asking the town to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by purchase approximately 1/4 acre of land that runs adjacent to the high school, and in fact has been used by the high school as part of its property for many, many years, but that is actually owned by the First Baptist Church. The First Baptist Church have agreed with the town, as the board is aware, based upon their actions at a recent meeting, to enter into a contingent purchase and sale agreement for this property, subject to the vote of the town meeting. We would need to appropriate $15,000 for that purpose. And I know we've had extensive discussions about this, but unless there are questions, I'll move on. Article 3. Article 3, which is in your warrant, has to do with authorizing the town, through its town manager and town council, to impose and record liens against private real property for municipal charges that arise or have arisen from the removal of trees or branches from a private property, when the town determines that such action is deemed necessary because they've found that the tree itself is a danger to public safety. You will recall that we had a similar instance with a tree on Lowell Street, in which for many, many months we were requesting that the private property owner address this issue. It got to a point where we felt that there was an imminent danger to the safety of the public, and therefore the board authorized that the tree be removed by the town. This enables us now to lien those costs, and in fact allows us to do it retroactively based upon an action by the Board of Selectmen. So the Selectmen would have to take a specific action in each case. The Article 4 is a companion to that article. It was recommended by Town Council that we essentially codify that action, and so that we put it right into the bylaws. And the bylaws will now address this issue, so in years from now, we won't have to rely simply on an institutional memory based upon an article at town meeting. The action from that article will also be codified into the bylaws of the inhabitants of the town. And again, it will just do the same that I just suggested it would do with regard to establishing municipal charges to be liened onto the property owner's property so that the town can recover its costs.
So if I may, Mr. Carr, I think I asked this or a similar question, but so that I have a clear understanding. In the future, if these two articles are to pass, in the future, if a similar circumstance occurs, if the Board of Selectmen, under advice from Department of Public Works, yourself and others, if the Board of Selectmen determines that the town should remove a tree in this particular case and lien the property owner, that with the Board of Selectmen's vote, it wouldn't need to go to a town meeting vote?
That's correct.
All right, so that's as far as it goes.
But the board would still have the responsibility to take that vote.
Okay, and that's what I wanted to hear. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. The remaining two articles are petitioned articles, Mr. Chairman. The first article is to see whether the town would authorize the board to enter into an agreement to dispose of land by sale to anyone looking to acquire that property. The petition was from a William and Laura Schultz, but as the board knows, it would have to go through the regular competitive bid process that is outlined in Chapter 3, Section 16 of the bylaws, as well as all other applicable laws, specifically the Public Procurement and Acquisition Act. The parcel is located on Boutwell Street, and it's described in the assessor's records as map 19, parcel 52. Just have a copy of where that is to familiarize the Board of Selectmen. It's essentially a parcel of land on Boutwell Street itself that lies between Taft Road and Roosevelt Road. It's about 8,800, 8,900 square feet of property in and of itself. It's not a buildable lot. The petitioner abuts the lot, but again, this will have to go through a surplus declaration process. The Property Review Board will take a look at this. Members of the review board have already been in contact with the petitioner to try to determine what their interest is. And also, the Property Review Board will assemble at the Finance Committee hearing to listen to whatever the petitioner may offer and to listen to the public, whatever they may offer. They will then meet at a subsequent meeting in which they will vote on a recommendation to me, and it would ultimately be my determination as to whether or not the property is surplus. If it's deemed surplus, it'll go to town meeting, and town meeting will have to take an action. The assessor will establish a fair market value. The proponent, the petitioner of the article, will be required to accept that value, and if it's to go forward, and then it'll go forward in a competitively bid process. If it's determined that the property is not surplus to the needs of the to the town, and that the town is in fact interested in retaining the parcel, then it will not go forward. Similar to any other regular action that we've taken at annual town meetings. The article number 6 and the second of the two petitioned articles was submitted by Kevin McDonald as the petitioner, and it reads, to see if the town will vote to preserve Wilmington High School and prevent it from being demolished.
Thank you. Any questions on any of the articles?
And the Finance Committee will have, I know I said this, but the Finance Committee will have a complete review of the warrant on November 21st. It's a Monday evening, November 21st, 7 p.m. here at the Town Hall, and then they will make their recommendations that they will publish to the Town Clerk's office, and it'll be available at the town meeting, the special town meeting on December 10th. Thank you.
Is that a joint meeting between Finance Committee and Planning Board, or is that just Finance Committee?
It'll just be Finance Committee, because the Planning Board, there are no articles that require the Planning Board's review this year.
Very good. Thank you. Communications.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, you have a letter from, that was authored by Shelley Newhouse, the Director of Public Health, that was sent to Kenneth Kimmel, a commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection, and also to the administrator of the Salt Remediation Program for the Massachusetts Highway Division. And I'm sure I provided the right letter, yes. The letter itself is part of a formal complaint process that we have initiated to Mass Highway, essentially to try to get a no-salt zone, or at least a reduced salt zone on that portion of Route 93 that goes through Wilmington. A representative from the EPA was meeting on October 20th with Mass Highway to present a PowerPoint presentation about this issue, which had also been presented to the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners. And it was our determination that the best way to go forward was to contact both of these agencies and make a recommendation. And that's what you have here, asking them to accept the letter as a part of a formal complaint process regarding elevated levels of sodium that are found in the town's drinking water. We indicate that the town is also addressing this issue, and that the DPW is looking at establishing a reduced or no salt zone within the source water protection areas in the town. They actually are implementing the reduced salt zone this winter for all of those town roadways that are located within the source water protection area. We indicate to them that we feel that the impact of the salting of the Route 93 during the winter months in Wilmington is causing the excessive sodium levels in the drinking water supply, which we in turn have to treat. And we're asking that they conduct a more detailed investigation, and subsequently, it's our hope that they will declare a no salt zone for that portion of Route 93 in Wilmington.
This is something a lot of towns do, obviously, if they're,
Yeah,
if the highway's near.
Andover has done it. It's difficult certainly to monitor, and you are hopeful that the plow driver does exactly what you're asking them to do, and this is the first step in that process. But we can certainly control it on our end. And the goal, of course, is at the same time to allow for the safe removal of snow and ice on the town's property.
Mr. Chairman, just,
Sure.
Mike, can you tell me, is it becoming a dangerous, I'm gonna look at it on the other side of the fence. What about the roads? I know lately we've been getting a lot of freezing rain and wind and ice, and that becomes a problem, and obviously I wouldn't wanna see us jeopardize residents out there just traveling to go to the supermarket and back. Obviously, I mean, it would be nice to see a detail of the streets if they are going to implement it as far as the town, but is it really become that much of a serious issue where it's really in the drinking water, or?
It's a real balancing act. I know Mike Woods, in looking at it, feels as though we need to make an effort to reduce the level of sodium in the water. And Dawn, on a site that the Superintendent of Public Works obviously has to ensure that the roads are maintained appropriately. So they're looking at various alternatives to the use of salt. But I think that we can come up with a plan to handle the local roads. The major issue here is on Route 93. And that's where we find that there is just a great deal of salt that's being used by Mass Highway. So we're going to hopefully get them to address that. But I think you raise a very valid point, and it becomes one of those situations where you need to balance things out. It's almost, I would almost liken it to the whole responsibility that the communities in the state have with regard to mosquito infestation. You know, you have, on the one hand, you need to balance the issue of the chemicals that you might be using, and on the other hand, you need to protect people from disease that result from mosquitoes. So
I understand it's a difficult task.
issue.
Maybe before snow and ice really hit, which is only going to be, could be a month from now. You know, I've seen Thanksgiving football games with 6 inches of snow. Maybe we can have the superintendent of the water and the department
Sure.
to at least reassure us if this is going to happen. Maybe I would look more of a reduce, you know, my own self personally. I would just want to make sure that, you know, public safety is a priority as well, as long as the drinking water too. I mean, I think we all feel that. Just want a blanket of security, knowing that if we go to that route or that level, that public safety and the roads, I mean, just want to make sure we're going to be
Sure.
okay too.
Sure.
All right, good.
I'll work that out with the chairman and
sure.
schedule a meeting.
Thank you.
And perhaps at that same meeting, I can ask, unless you have the answer at your ready, are there treatments or additives or things that we as a community can do during the treatment process to bring the sodium levels down, or are we already maxing that out to the extent that it's possible?
I think that's probably a very good question for the Superintendent of Public Works there. The short answer to that is yes, I think there are, but it's probably best that he address how he would approach that.
Right on, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the board received a copy of a letter that Representative Charles Murphy sent to Representative Ann Goby, who is the chair of the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources and Agriculture at the legislature, relative to House Bill 3570, an act exempting the town of Wilmington from liability. This comes from the home rule petition relative to the Maple Meadow landfill site that the town adopted back in 2009 and again in 2011 at the annual town meeting. Representative Murphy writes that he's calling attention to this particular bill, describes what it is, then describes Maple Meadow landfill itself, indicating that it's located off of Main Street near the Wilmington line, and that it accepted municipal solid waste from the 50s until the state ordered it closed in 1976. In 2000, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection ordered that the site be kept. And I'm quoting now from Representative Murphy. Since that time, the town has repeatedly come into conflict with and criticized DEP's oversight of the capping, contending that DEP let lapse a $2 million bond issued by the private company hired to oversee the capping effort. Had DEP adequately supervised the capping effort, and most importantly, if the bond had not been allowed to lapse, the town would not need the liability relief sought by this legislation. I would certainly appreciate your assistance in expediting the progress of this legislation. If you need further information, please contact me. So this is a pretty strong letter that Representative Murphy sent on the town's behalf, and we certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Just to add to that, the chairman had requested that I attend a hearing last Tuesday at the State House, which I did. Had the opportunity to testify regarding the bill, as did the representative of the current owner of the site. I know that all three of our legislative delegates had indicated to me and or to the manager that they intended to testify at some point that day. So I was not there at the same time as any of them, but I understand they probably all made it by that day as well. So stay tuned for the legislative process to work its way through.
Thank you for going down there on our behalf.
We have correspondence that was provided to the board from State Senator Bruce Tarr, informing the board of disaster loan assistance being available relative to the severe storms and flooding that took place on October 4th, 2011. The town of Wilmington really, to the best of my knowledge, did not suffer any losses during that storm. Certainly the town itself as a government entity didn't. I'm not aware of property owners who may have lost anything. However, the disaster loan assistance is specifically for Essex County, but it also includes contiguous counties, and in that case that would include Middlesex and Suffolk, and obviously we're a community of Middlesex County. So if anybody is out there and unbeknownst to us did have some damage as a result of the storm that took place on October 4th and had some flooding damage, the deadline to try to seek any compensation for that is December 12th, 2011, relative to any physical damage, and relative to any economic injury, it is July 13th of 2012. And this information can be made available from my office or by going on the U.S. Small Business Administration website. The board has received another in a series of letters and correspondence regarding the municipal elections to the Boston Region Metropolitan Planning Organization. In this case, chief elected officials were again notified of their responsibility to cast ballots for the upcoming election, and I can report to you that it's my understanding that the chairman has in fact cast ballots relative to the various candidacies. But this brings us forward, and as you know, it's the chairman's responsibility to take that action. the authority is vested in either a mayor or a chairman of the Board of Selectmen. We have an invitation to the Selectmen from our Director of the Department of Veteran Services, Louis Samaglia, inviting the board to participate in remembering and honoring our past and present veterans on Friday, November 11th. The members of the board are asked to assemble at the 4th of July parking lot at 10:45 a.m. and then at 11 a.m. we'll proceed to the town common for the Veterans Day ceremonies. And we obviously encourage all the residents to come out as well. I know the selectmen have always shown their unanimous support of this particular event. It's great to see everybody there.
So if I have it right, it's on 11/11, at 11/11 of 2011?
At 11.
At 11, okay. That's an amazing thing. I mean, seriously, I was thinking about that when I read this, like, wow, that's remarkable.
It is.
The board has correspondence from Timothy Murnane, Vice President of External Affairs at Comcast, again reiterating that Comcast will continue to provide high-speed internet service to the town of Wilmington schools and the local library free of charge, continuing the company's tradition of putting its advanced fiber technology to work in the various communities that Comcast serves. We also have correspondence from Mary Frere of Verizon Fios regarding an FCC regulation charge. She's indicating that Verizon will pass through to its Fios TV customers the 8 cents per month fee that the FCC imposes on Verizon to cover the cost of the FCC regulation. Customers were notified in their September billing. And finally, we have correspondence from Jane Lyman of Comcast Xfinity regarding programming changes that are expected to occur in the town on December 19th. They provide those changes specifically. Centric on Channel 274 will no longer be available with a subscription to the sports entertainment package, but will continue to be available with a subscription to Digital Preferred. They're adding BBC World to the Digital Preferred network, and BBC America on Channel 241 will move to Digital Preferred service. All of this also is included in a correspondence that goes to any of the subscribers to Comcast Xfinity. Mr. Chairman, consistent with our earlier discussion, the board is being asked to consider signing the warrant for the special town meeting to be held on Saturday, December 10th, 2011.
Questions, comments, or a motion?
I move to sign the warrant for the special town meeting to be held on Saturday, December 10th, 2011.
I'll second it.
Motion made second, all in favor?
Thank you. There are 3 originals to sign. If you would
Unanimous?
sign by your name, I would appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board also is asked to consider a request from Teresa Pietro, who is a teacher at Wilmington High School, representing the High School Foreign Language Club, to use the town common to conduct a fundraiser. Specifically, they're looking to organize a joint fundraising endeavor between the Wilmington High School Foreign Language Club and the students that are going on the high school Costa Rica trip in April of 2012. Trying to come up with a theme with regard to world cultures. They're looking to have an event that would be a bocce tournament and meatball cook-off. The aim of the bocce tournament is to spark interest and awareness of the game of bocce amongst the younger population in town. And the aim of the cook-off is to spark some friendly competition surrounding a homemade favorite that is, and I'm quoting, that is near and dear to many of us. They're looking for the event to be held on Saturday, November 19th, with a rain day for the following day, and they're looking to use the town common. They also indicate that that contestants, I guess in the meatball competition, in addition to that, there would be I'm sorry, the contestants would provide the meatballs, but the club would also provide hot cocoa and water and hot cider and baked goods to be sold at the event. As the board knows, I provided the board with a memorandum regarding this issue and their request to conduct the bocce tournament and meatball cook-off. They have been in contact with the health director, who I've also spoken to, and I believe they've been made aware, and I reiterated that, that something like meatballs cannot be served on town property unless they have been prepared by a licensed food establishment. So if they were going to have some type of a contest among restaurants, for example, who are preparing food from licensed food establishments, they could do that. Similar to, I think, the special ed pack that did the pizza cook-off, where various restaurants that sell pizza provided pizza. In this case, the Board of Health would not be able to give them permission to do that at a public place because of the liability issues and the health-related issues. Also, the superintendent of the Department of Public Works is recommending that if the board is going to give permission to conduct the bocce tournament, that it be given at an alternate location, and that location we would suggest would be that grassed area located across from the town common next to the municipal parking lot, which has been referred to as the Swain School site. So that's this information was conveyed to the teachers. I haven't heard back. I have talked with the superintendent of schools, who also would indicate that she would support an alternate location for the tournament, as opposed to having that be on the town common itself, where they think there could be some problems there, where there wouldn't be any problems at the alternate site, and recognizes that we can't have we can't promote an issue that could create a health problem. So I have not heard back from these folks, but I did write to them. You have a copy of that letter, and I would recommend that the board consider approving the fundraiser with the stipulations that have been outlined.
Questions, comments, or a motion on meatballs and bocce?
I'd make a motion as described by the town manager.
Second.
Motion made and second.
I assume, given the recommendation, there's no conflicts that we're aware of.
Right. Motion made and second. All in favor? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes the regular business before the board. I would want to just mention two items, both of which came to my attention today. One is that, as you know, we did have the flu clinic for the students, and then we had the flu clinic this past Saturday for the general population in town. The Board of Health, as of today, has scheduled a senior flu clinic, a senior citizen flu clinic, for November 9th, which will be held at the Senior Center from 1 to 3 p.m. So November 9th is a Wednesday, and we'll try to publicize that to the extent possible. I would respectfully request that the press publicize that. I would expect that Mrs. Newhouse will be in contact with you from the Board of Health, but the flu clinic for senior citizens will be held at the Bazell Senior Center on November 9th from 1 to 3 p.m. The Bazell Senior Center located on School Street. And the other issue, Mr. Chairman, is you recall that at the last meeting we discussed the repairs that were being made at railroad crossings, and we had two successful repairs, one at the Glen Road side location and the other at the railroad crossing at Clark Street. We were scheduled for Friday night, October 28th, to do the Salem Street rail crossing repair. However, we received a call from the railroad indicating that they've had to postpone this work to the following Friday evening. So it will now be on November 4th through Saturday, November 5th. It's work that is done overnight. We will make changes. We have made changes already to the DPW website, and there will be the appropriate signage and pre-signage that will be utilized prior to the Salem Street closing. Thank you. That concludes the regular business, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Public comments. Do we,
Just before you start public comments, I have a point of order, Mr. Chairman. For several meetings now, I'm going to guess 6, 7, 8 meetings in a row, prior to offering the opportunity to make public comment, you have, I think, consistently and clearly explained what the purpose of it is, and that being the opportunity for folks who aren't sure where to direct questions to find out where to direct those questions and get those answers. And it's not for the purpose of engaging in substantive discussion that frankly the general public has a right to know ahead of time by way of the agenda. So I certainly preface my suggestion by saying that I think you've done that consistently and clearly, and frankly I think you've done it very well. With all of that said, though, we keep ending up in the same situation, meeting after meeting after meeting. So I just wanted to run it by the chair and the rest of the board to see if there's any objection to changing things up a bit. And my suggestion was going to be, if we could try it to see how it works, to give anybody who's interested in speaking the opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes. And as simple as I think you've made the rules and the ground rules of how people can participate, I'd suggest that we make them even more simple. That there be 2 very simple rules. That during that 5 minutes of comment, that people stand at their seats and state their name and address and proceed with their comments. And secondly, that they not be critical of anybody who's not here to defend himself or herself. So my thinking here is that if anybody has business that they think is urgent enough to take time under public comment, that at the very least with those simple rules, people will be afforded up to 5 minutes and the chance to speak on any matter that pertains to the town, as long as they don't take shots at people who aren't here to defend themselves. So I'd just like to see if you're amenable to that, Mr. Chairman, and the board.
Mr. Chairman, if I can make a quick comment, I agree with Selectman Newhouse. Many years ago, when I was chairman, I created public comments. That was simply to let people, give them an opportunity to go through the maze of local government and give them a quick answer immediately at the meeting. If not, we would guide them in the right direction. It was not to give someone an open mic to talk about the man in the moon. It was simple. And in all these years, it's been working well, and I appreciate the past chairmen, they continue with it. And I know people who came to ask questions would call me up from time to time and said, yeah, I saw the town manager the following day. I had to go to the assessor's office, or I had to go there. Didn't know it, but I agree with Mr. Newhouse, what he's saying. And you're the chairman, you've done a good job running the meetings. You've been very respectful to everybody. And, I don't think we need to beat the drum on this. I think we all know what it's all about. And I'll say it again. It was just to help people through maze of local government. Quick answer, and it's not to give someone an open mic to talk upon anything and everything. And I think that we've been doing a good job on it. You've been doing a good job on it, and I think people respect that. And that's what it is, it's called respect. Thank you.
thank you. Any other comments on that?
I personally like the plan as it's been stated by Mr. Newhouse, and I certainly would support that.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. And I think I have the answer to the question I'm about to ask. Is there no statute or bylaw that we're obligated to have a part of the meeting that we call public comments? In other words, when we have an open meeting, an open forum, such as it is like this, are we obligated to open up the conversation to the participants or to the viewers of the room? or is it more of a courtesy that we have traditionally done since Mr. McCoy implemented that?
The open meeting law says that deliberations by a public body, when they meet for the purpose of deliberating or making decisions in the interest of the public, have to be done in the open where people can see and hear. There is no law, statute, regulation, or even protocol that says that people are entitled to make public comment, although you're right, I think that this board has continued to do that for several years now consistently because it makes sense when it's not abused.
Indeed.
So,
I'm in agreement.
thank you for bringing that up. I think it's a great idea as well, and we seem to all be in favor of it. Anybody that wishes to speak under public comments? Mr. McDonald, I'm sorry, I didn't see you up front here. Mr. Bodnar?
Quick, all you guys know who I am. I've kind of been waiting for this to come to a head. Week after week, we sit in the audience here and we sit at home and we listen to what this Board of Selectmen has to say about our town and about our finances and how our tax money is spent and where it's going and the impact it has on all the residents. All well and good. But every once in a while, each and every one of us in this sitting audience and many at home have dissent with what you up there have to say. And the only place for us to express it is here at public comment. And you can't stifle it. Another thing I'd like to bring up, at the school meeting a week or so ago on Thursday, yes, I don't have to identify the resident that got up and spoke, but he made a few comments that were quite intelligent and worthy to listen to. Evidently, it wasn't to be on your ears, his speaking. He brought up many things. He was ousted. I was one of the people that said, leave him alone and let him speak. And Mr. Semiglia, you being a veteran, you should know very well about freedoms and the freedom of speech. Thousands, if not tens of thousands of veterans have perished to honor freedom of speech.
Mr. Bodnar, before you stood up and asked to speak, I should have asked if you were amenable to the two rules that we have. And that's my fault. I probably should have asked you that, to either stay on topic, come with a question like we decided what this is all about, we all just decided on. So I probably should have asked you, are you amenable to these new guidelines of public comments that we just discussed here?
Well, it's the only venue we have.
No, it's not, Mr. Bonner. On an individual situation or individual item that's concerning, such as a new school, there's going to be a finance committee meeting on the 21st of November. That's where you come and you express your opinions for or against a certain article or a certain thing. That's what the school committee meetings are for. That's not really what public comment section of this board is. I don't know how much more I can explain it, or how was it just explained again tonight?
If I may.
Well, are you good with that?
As I stated, and I tried to put something down here, if you just listen to this one last word here, as flawed and biased as our opinions may be, so are yours, occasionally.
Thank you. Did you have something, Mr. Shampoo?
You know, I think I wanted to compliment what you were saying, is that there's absolutely no intent, desire on my part, and I suspect on any of yours, to squelch free speech. On the contrary, we're an open government. We have our deliberations and conversations in the open by virtue of, that's the statute. That's what we're required to do. There is multiple means to have your voice heard through the community, whether it be through the press outlets that we have available to everyone. There's one-on-one conversation. There's meetings. You can. Everyone in town government here at Town Hall is accessible. So there's ample ways to have one's opinions heard by those that you want to have your opinion heard by. Now, if you want to have your opinion heard in front of a camera, well, that's not what this forum is about. And that's what I think we've decided here tonight, is that this isn't a show that we're putting on here. We're having a deliberation. We're having a meeting. We're not putting on a show. All right, we're not looking for ratings here. We're trying to get the town's government the business of town done. So, that all being said, we are not squelching free speech. Use all of the outlets available to every American and exercise your privilege of free speech, but this forum is not free speech. This is our meeting that we have in the open, and you're invited to participate in terms of viewing and ask a question that's pertinent to what we just described a few moments ago. That's my feelings on the subject.
Thank you.
If I may?
Sure.
Also, just, I've waited selectively to speak as well, but I feel that, every single person on the board at different points has taken their turn. And respectfully stated to you, Mr. Bodnar, and anyone here and anyone listening at home, you're absolutely entitled to have, one, an opportunity to speak, and two, to have your opinions. But there are people that are respectfully not entitled to their facts, and that requires research and due diligence and making sure that they're not just pontificating on what they deem the facts allegedly to be. So the manner in which the meetings are being conducted, the points that were made, whether it was from the town manager or from other different meetings, was about civility and about respect and about the fact that there are rules of engagement, and there were requests that were made by the chairman of this board, by a town manager hosting a meeting, or a school superintendent, that whether it's anyone here or anyone else, that simply had no regard for that and just decided to go on their own course and their own agenda. So where you may have one opinion that I don't agree with, or I may, or vice versa, it's not a turf battle. It's about being able to have a mutually inclusive discussion about a given topic, and we may come on opposite sides of the topic, but it's the rules of engagement and it's how the meeting is conducted. So whether the press or whoever wants to pick and choose certain segments, there's nothing about what's going on here that hasn't been ultra transparent. There's been public forums, there's been this meeting, there's been websites, there's been communication. The doors of this town hall are open daily for people to come in and seek information, whether it's verbally or in writing, and to insinuate that there's any sort of collusion or hidden facts or ulterior motives. Personally and professionally, I resent that implication. So where we may respectfully agree to disagree, the facts are what prevails, and the town will vote on given matters and subjects, whether it's at this meeting, town meetings, special elections, that may be the case. So that's where I want to say on it, and I've pretty much reached my threshold for pain to sit silent and make it very clear that I do support the school project as a person, as a member of this body, and it may differ from a resident of this town, and I respect that. I don't have an issue if someone doesn't support the school, but there's a manner in which you should conduct yourself as a human being that's professional, cordial, and with civility, and there are people that lack that. And they're being held accountable, and they're being held to a standard to which I support the chairman of this board, and I support the town manager in their efforts to conduct proper meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said.
Lou, where are dissenting voices to be heard?
We've just gone over all the public meetings. Mr. Shampoo mentioned the media. The town hall's open every day. The town manager's office is open every day. This is not the forum to stand up every other week and go over the same things just because a certain individual doesn't agree with the new high
I
school.
don't get up unless it really riles me or it's something important. You know that.
Right.
And this bothered me a week ago at the school meeting.
Okay.
Because many good points were made. And it seems to me if dissenting opinions are made, you're not listened to or escorted out.
Well, you're not listening to what was just said up here then, Mr. Bodnar. Because obviously we just try to explain ourselves, and now you're not listening. You're saying we are stifling the others. It's just not true, and it's just not going to happen again up here at public comments anymore. Okay, having said that, is there any other public comments? Mr. McDonald, do you agree to the couple rules that we just went over here tonight?
First,
I'm asking you a question. Do you agree with the, stay?
to a certain extent.
What don't you agree with? You want to personally attack somebody, an individual? Is that what you want to do, Mr. McDonald?
I think I'm not interested in attacking
Well, I'm
anyone.
asking you a question. We have just kind of all agreed up here as a board to set guidelines for public comments. I'm asking you if you would agree to those public comments, and then you're welcome to speak.
I'll agree to it tonight.
Go ahead, Mr. Ryan.
Before I make my comments, though, I have a point of order.
What's your point of order?
I would like the camera to be off me because I'm not interested in being on camera. My point of order is, when I drove past the manager's, I'm glad Mr. Newhouse brought up the open meeting law, because when I drove past the manager's office tonight, I saw all the Board of Selectmen meeting in the manager's office, and I think that's a violation of the open meeting law. I would
Mr.
recommend...
McDonald, that's where we...
That's a point of order. Was it not
Let's
true?
let's answer the point of order. The fact that members of a committee or a board meet in the same place in order to assemble for a public purpose, let me assure you that is absolutely not a violation of the open meeting law. If we were to sit in that room and to deliberate about town business that's before the Board of Selectmen, that indeed would be a violation of the open meeting law. We've had this conversation in the past, and I think that it was, to my recollection, Mr. McCoy, who very clearly articulated what exactly goes on there. What goes on there is we greet each other, regardless of where we come down on certain political issues. We greet each other with civility, we say hello, we ask how family's doing, we ask how work's doing, and then we come in and we do the town's business at 7 o'clock. So, in terms of the open meeting law, there's not even been close to a violation.
We were even talking how bad the Colts were beaten by the Saints. So, I
That was
don't think
tonight's
that has anything to do with town business. Thanks.
Okay, with regard to public comments, I would have to state that there's a difference between a question and a difference between a statement. There are different subjects at hand tonight: insurance, health issues with regard to the Environmental Protection Agency. There are other issues that have been discussed tonight, such as the town meeting warrant. I was at the meeting with the Environmental Protection Agency here, and not one single selectman was here. As a matter of fact, the manager actually got here late. And I've been talking about this for quite a long time. And not only is salt an issue, but there are many accidents on Route 93. We have antifreeze, oils.
Mr.
we
McDonald,
have
do you have a question for us tonight?
This is public comment.
I'm asking you if you have a question. I don't need a snippy attitude, Mr. McDonald. I think we've articulated enough what we're talking about here. Okay? I'm asking you if you have a question.
I personally think respect is earned. Addressing your comments, Judy, I think maybe you could think about it a little bit, but I think respect is earned.
You're right.
About civility, just to be clear. I did not say respect, so if you want to
You can
listen,
watch the
I
meeting.
will, but it is
Now,
about civility.
With regard to that, because I'm gonna deal with the most serious issue before I ask Mr. Hull a question. For years, I've been talking about this, about protecting our well fields. Now, when I was at that meeting with the Environmental Protection Agency, there are miles and miles of highway that flow into our catch basins, that flow into our well fields. Now, I think it's a simple fix, and that is to have construction of very large tanks that would hold the amount of water that we would have to calculate in the heaviest storm there, and then pump that stuff out, so that we eliminate that immediately when the construction gets accomplished. Now, with regard to people who are not here to defend themselves, I would suggest that you have department heads here, so that when there is an issue, they can defend themselves. Because at that Environmental Protection Agency, we learned that for 10 years, records were missing as to elevations of chemicals and salt in our water. So
Mr. McDonald, you have 1 minute left, by the way.
I'd like to ask Mr. Hull a question. Mr. Hull, since we're dealing with insurance tonight, I was at a meeting with the Finance Committee where they actually met to transfer $350,000, I believe was the figure, from the general fund to the insurance fund. And it was for the purpose of paying a $9 million no-bid contract insurance. So could you talk to us a little bit about the health insurance, about the no-bid aspect of it, and why other things are bid on, but that's not bid on? Especially, I'd like to learn a little bit about the fact that the town is self-insured, and is self-insured up to $100,000. And so if we pay $9 million for a no-bid contract, and no claim ever goes over $100,000, We just paid $9 million out and have never gotten anything in return. So if you could address that, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you. And with regard to the other subjects, I'd like to talk about that too.
Time's up, Mr.
Because-
McDonald.
Yeah.
Time's up, Mr. McDonald. You agreed to them tonight. You agreed to the rules tonight.
I don't think we have
Mr. Hall, would you like to discuss them? Excuse me?
I didn't think we had an official timekeeper.
I was watching the clock.
Yeah, sure.
With respect to the health insurance as well as all the insurances that we have are not subject to Chapter 30B, which is the state procurement law. So there is no legal obligation to bid insurance, whether it's health insurance or general liability or property or any kind of insurance. We do periodically look at alternatives, particularly with respect to the stop-loss insurance that Mr. McDonald referred to. The town has been self-insured for probably about 20 years. And essentially what that means is that the town has a high deductible for health insurance. Up until last year, that limit was $100,000 per claim, and it has changed as of June 1st to $150,000 per claim. So what that means is the town's, on the one hand, it's assuming a greater percentage of the risk, but it also moderates the cost. So in the case of health insurance, if one individual has a claim that exceeds currently $150,000, then this insurance kicks in and we get reimbursed for everything in excess of $150,000. Unfortunately, we do have a number of individuals in any given year that may exceed $150,000. So it's just a mechanism. Many communities, many private sector entities use self-insurance as a way to try to moderate the cost of insurance.
How many people went over 150,000 or 100,000?
And you, Mr. McDonald,
It's a fair question.
please, not any other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, we can certainly find that out for you and provide that information if there was any, but I think that there was some misinformation when you talked about the town only being insured for $100,000, and as Mr. Hall explained, and at that time, you were advised on several occasions that the person to talk to was Mr. Hall, and I also advised you that the information that you were articulating wasn't exactly correct. And now Mr. Hull has had an opportunity to address that. But if you were truly interested in that as an individual, you were welcome to meet with Mr. Hull or to call him or to call me. And that's what Mr. Morris told you at that particular Finance Committee meeting, but you apparently didn't want to do that. The other
Mr. McDonald, we're trying to
The other issue
respond to your
is that
question.
Mr. McDonald indicated that I was late for a meeting. I did go to another one of several night meetings that I attended. The one he was referring to was the Water and Sewer Commission meeting, and I was there for the entire presentation that came from Mr. Heath, who was representing, he was a contract employee of EPA. So that's an unfortunate falsehood. If I wasn't there at the beginning of the meeting to listen to whether or not the minutes were approved, it was purposeful. In fact, what I did do is I asked the water and sewer superintendent to essentially knock on the door and let me know when this particular presentation was going to take place. He did that, and I attended, and I stayed for the entire meeting, just as Mr. McDonald did. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I would just make the point that, that the term free speech engenders thoughts and emotions in people that are very compelling. But the fact of the matter is that, free speech doesn't just give everybody a blank check to say what they want, when they want, and where they want. It's that simple. I mean, free speech doesn't allow somebody to run into a crowded theater and yell fire. It also doesn't give somebody the right to show up to a public meeting with information that this person believes is so important, has to be addressed now, without the kind of notice that is constructive for people to be able to provide answers, and without the kind of notice that everybody else in town should be entitled to by knowing it's going to be discussed. So I think statements have been made here tonight by the board, which I, absolutely agree with. But again, I keep going back to the free speech is not a reason for us to deprive the rest of the town of adequate notice about the business that's to be conducted. That's the point that I think needs to continue to be made. And again, Mr. Chairman, thank you for indulging me with that suggestion, because you must be at your wit's end trying to maintain a level of civility and control and still provide people the opportunity to be heard, as you've continued to do and as every chairman that I can recall has done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McDonald.
I did have an article on the town meeting, and I didn't get a chance to address that.
I think that's on the FinCom meeting on the 21st.
There's been
Mr.
a couple
McDonald,
other meetings
is
that
there any other public comments?
get put on the agenda, and you deny me getting put on the agenda.
Did I return a letter to you, Mr. McDonald?
I'd
And
like to
did you
make a
return
request
back?
tonight to be put on next
Just
selectmen
like everybody
meeting.
else does, Mr. McDonald, you can go to the manager's office. Any other public comments?
I will do
You're
that
done.
tomorrow.
Mr. McDonald, please, let's not play this game every night. They're up here answering your questions.
I'm not playing any games.
Mr. McDonald, they're up,
I'm not-
Mr. McDonald, they're up there answering your questions. You're back there snickering and making faces. That's not respectful, okay?
You gotta earn the respect. There's not a man on the.
We're not here for a joke, Mr. McDonald, okay? And I prefer you not make a joke out of my meetings anymore, okay? Thank you very
You're
much.
making a joke out of it.
Yes, I am, sure I am, Mr. McDonald. Okay,
I'm glad you recognize it.
keep the mouth going, Mr. McDonald. That's the respect thing I'm talking about and the civility that you just don't have.
You gotta earn it.
Any other public comments? Mr. Lingenfeld, the same, these two?
Yeah, I'm just going to add 2 cents. I was actually at the water and sewer, the George Lingenfeld, 11 Concord Street.
Thank
I was
you.
actually at the sewer commissioners meeting a couple nights ago. I think that was an excellent suggestion to have Mike Woods and the other people come in. And the water's not as bad as it was led to believe. It's just creeping up, and they're going to manage it. And the process, Mr. McCoy raised the issue about the process. He was concerned about the letter. And it's my understanding from that meeting was it's a multi-year process. They're just trying to get the ball rolling.
Right.
I think it'd be very helpful to have them come in and give that same meeting. So I congratulate you on that request. That was a very good request.
Thank you.
So I could have added a comment at the time, but
That's,
thank you.
thank you. Okay, no other public comments? No. Okay, new business committee reports?
I'm all set.
All set.
All set?
Just want to reiterate what Mr. Grant uttered earlier today, is if you haven't participated in the Liberty Mutual contest or quiz, please do so for the town of Wilmington. It is for our fire department. We have won in the past, and we'd love to win it again. We're in second place, so we need you to go and do that for us. That's all I have.
Thank you. Important dates.
Mr. Chairman, we continue the brush drop-off program at Old Main Street location, the recycling center, off of Main Street in the Woburn line, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. on October 26th, and again on October 29th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that will remain open through November 2nd and November 5th, and then again on November 9th and November 12th. Those are Wednesdays and Saturdays when residents can drop off brush. On October 28th, this coming Saturday, the Sarah Carter Lecture Series. Friday, I'm sorry, October 28th, Friday, the Sarah Carter Lecture Series will be sponsoring the Singing Trooper, which will be a program to be held at the middle school auditorium at 7 p.m. This is a program certainly suitable for families, and it is free of charge, and all residents and their guests are welcome to attend at the middle school Friday night at 7 p.m. A reminder that on Saturday, October 29th, is the National Drug Take Back Day, where representatives will be at the Public Safety Building from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. To collect any old and expired drugs, no questions asked. It would be just dropped off. If you have any questions, you can contact either the Board of Health or the Police Department. On October 30th, on Sunday, a busy weekend, the Horribles Parade, sponsored by the Recreation Department, will be held. I think this is the 44th annual Horribles Parade in the town. It will kick off at Rotary Park by the Public Safety Building at 4:30 p.m., and Wilmington youngsters in costumes are welcome to march up Church Street and go to the Wilmington High School cafeteria for some goodies. The program of curbside collection of yard waste begins on October 31st and will run for that 5-week period through December 2nd. You can use either open barrels, so designated by a recycling designation, or a biodegradable paper bag to put your leaves at curbside, and we will pick them up on your regular trash day between October 31st and December 2nd. Also, the Department of Elderly Services, you will recall that this was mentioned by Mrs. Marciello at the last Board of Selectmen's meeting, invites you to attend their Elderly Services Talent Show, which will be held at the high school auditorium November 6th at 2 p.m. That's a Sunday. And Veterans Day ceremonies will be at the Town Common on November 11th at 11 a.m. I'll remind you again of the Senior Citizen Flu Clinic on November 9th, and that the board will next meet on the 14th. The last day to register to vote in the special town election is November 16th. That's Wednesday, November 16th, at the Town Hall in the Town Clerk's office. You have until 8 p.m. on that date. This again is to register for the December 6th Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion election. If you're already registered, you obviously don't have to register. We've had some of those questions that have come before us, but anybody who's not registered and who would like to register can do so between now and November 16th. That concludes the business.
Thank you. We'll entertain a motion to go to executive session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining and real property issues.
So moves.
Second.
Motion made second. All in favor? Need a voice vote for that?
Yes.
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 Unanimous?
Yes.
Thank you. Have a good night.